Okay, so today we're going to talk about lab safety, safety protocols, how to keep us safe during the lab all year long. So, in order to have success in the classroom or in the laboratory, we need to make sure that these safety rules are a priority. Okay, so before delving into any experiment, I'll always give you guys a pre-lab assignment, which will introduce the lab, go over any materials, and you guys will write your own procedures. So you guys will be introduced to, what we're doing for the lab. You won't see it for the first time in the lab. So it is super important that we follow these specific safety rules and procedures. And I will also involve, for each lab, I will have at the beginning of the lab, anything different about the procedure or any safety rules that are specific to that lab. And then, so this PowerPoint, I did it for the cartoon Dexter's Laboratory. And so at the bottom, we can see him having a successful year in chemistry lab. So the first rule I have is no unsupervised lab time. All right, so students are not allowed to be in the lab without me at all. Okay, there's no unsupervised lab time or experiments are allowed. So if you're experimenting or in the lab, I have to be there. Okay, and this is a number one rule, no excuses. Students, you may not start a lab until I have given permission. And all students are strictly prohibited from entering the chemical storage room at any time. So this is just basically a little closet I have that I keep all my chemicals in. And so students are not allowed in here at all times. And then, so basically in the lab, there's going to be a lot of fun equipment. And I promise we're going to get the chance to learn about it, play around with it, experiment with it. However, in the bottom right, don't go ahead and just push buttons or do things without my permission or for showing you. Okay, and then no horseplay within the lab at any time. I get it, we like to joke around with our fellow classmates. However, the lab is not the time to do so. So instead of the upper left, I would prefer you guys look like the lower right. Her hands are off. She's observing. She's probably already listened to directions, or she's waiting for the next direction to be given. Okay, so personal protective equipment. So this is PPE. A lot of times you'll hear about it. And so these are just protective gear in order to minimize exposure to hazards. So PPE that we will need in our lab, you must wear a lab coat or apron. I don't mind which one. If you want to bring your own lab coat, your own apron, and get it approved by me, that's fine too. We also have lab coats and aprons provided that you can use. Safety goggles are absolutely a must. As soon as you enter the lab, your safety goggles are on. Closed-toed shoes must be worn. Crocs do not count as closed-toed shoes. So make sure if we're having lab days, you have closed-toed shoes on. Okay, and then gloves when applicable or preferred. So if you'd like to wear gloves, they're always going to be available to you. There are going to be some labs where I will say, definitely let's wear gloves today. And there will definitely be labs where I will say, you don't need to wear gloves. If you want to, that's fine too. No loose sleeves, so we don't want anything getting stuck on any chemicals or spilling anything. And then long hair must be tied back. So here is Dexter at the bottom, ready for a safe and secure environment. He's got all his personal protective equipment on, and he's going to have a great day. Okay, so let's get into lab safety equipment. Okay, so first on the upper left, I want to talk about the exit plan. As we all know, we've seen it before. This is a plan that we're going to take in case there is an emergency. I want you guys to all be familiar with it, know where the exit is, know where we would make our exit from this room. Next, we have the fire extinguisher. So this fire extinguisher, and then in the middle we have an emergency fire blanket. So these are going to be used if there's a small fire, okay, if the fire is capable of being put out. If it's not capable of being put out, then we need to leave the room. In the middle, we also have a first aid kit. So this will be used if needed. Band-aids, all kinds of goodies in there. And then on the far right are probably things that you're not used to. So we have an eye wash station. So this is on the bottom, and this is used to cleanse out our eyes in case we get anything in them. And then on the upper right is everybody's favorite. It's the safety shower. So you pull on that lever, Water comes out, and this is in case you spill on yourself and need to quickly douse yourself. The eye wash station, when you flip those orange things open, there's a foot pedal on the bottom, and the water will come out, and you just put your eyes directly into it. Okay, a couple more lab safety equipment. So we have a chemical spill kit. So this is if you spilled something on the lab. This is something that we have in our lab. I might tell you to go grab it. However, I will be the one containing the spill. Down below we have a biohazard, so this is just proper waste. In the middle we have a fume hood, so this is proper ventilation for certain labs. I will tell you and direct you when we are using these. And then a sharps container, so we don't work with any needles or anything, but if we did, this is where we put them. And then the flammable cabinet, so this is just if you have a flammable substance, it's going in the flammable cabinet. Okay, so by knowing the location and function of each piece of the safety equipment, we can ensure a safer lab environment for everybody. All right, now talking about safety with students. So some students might have allergies to certain chemicals, so we just want to make sure it's important that you guys are making me aware of these. Also, make sure that you're making me aware of any handicaps that we may have or any medical emergencies that I might need to know about. So just making me aware of them, and we can plan for that for the lab. We also need to be mindful if students do have these and be respectful of them in their accommodations that we make for them. Okay, so there's always a hazard and then the risk, and then later comes the control in order to mitigate the risk of this hazard. Okay, so a hazard is any item, condition, or agent, biological, chemical, radiological, physical. So it's a potential harm, right? The risk is the level of threat, right? Why is this harmful to me? And then the control is what we come in to proactively mitigate this risk. So an example would be we have a 55-gallon drum of methanol. The risk would be it could be a high-risk spill. It could cause a fire because it's super flammable. Well, what's the control? The control is that we store it in a flammable cabinet. Okay, grounding, bonding, and it's eliminating all ignition sources. So talking about within the lab, we have to talk about safe techniques for handling chemicals. So when we're talking about handling chemicals, we're talking about transporting them, storing them. We're not mixing unknown substances unless our teacher is proactively telling us to. Any chemical spills or mishaps, and you need to inform the teacher immediately. And then we just need to make sure that proper techniques for measuring and dispensing liquids and such. So this will be taught by me at the beginning of the lab. I will make sure we all know how. If you have any questions, please ask, please. And then we always like to keep our workspace in the lab clean and organized, so we don't like a cluttered space. Okay, so going on to the proper labeling. So on the right side, this is how if you are going to make your own liquids from a different bottle, you just need to make sure that they're labeled right. So we need to know that they're labeled right in order to dispose of them properly. And so this is why we're keeping all this information. So on the right side, I have my beaker. I've gotten a piece of paper. I've taped it on my beaker. I've named it, right? It's 30% isopropanol. I've noted that it's flammable. I have today's date on, and I have my name. Okay, well now if I leave this unattended, somebody else can come along, know what it is, know how to dispose of it, and take care of it the right way. Okay, when talking about safety within chemistry, a lot of times you'll see what we call a pictogram. And so a pictogram is just this graphical symbol of the hazard, right? So it's a quick way to recognize it. So pictograms that you guys have may seen before would be like no food or drink, right? So no food or drink in the lab at all times. Or maybe you've seen no dogs, right? No dogs allowed in this restaurant, or no clothes allowed in the pool, or no running in school, right? So these are common pictograms that you guys might see, but I wanted to show you guys common pictograms that you might see in chemistry. So there's health risk, chemical risk, and environmental risks, right? So these are all standardized along any chemistry class you're going to take. These are going to be the same ones. They all come from this SDS, which is a 16-section safety book on each chemical. Okay, so category 1 is going to be the most hazardous, and category 4 is the least hazardous. They're going to have these signal words, and they're all this required info is going to be within the SDS, which we will talk about. So those are safety data sheets. So here's some more with just some more information. So this little person, this is just telling you that it's a health hazard, right? And it might be any one of these. Obviously, the flame is telling us it's flammable. You're not having an open flame near it or anything that could ignite it. Exclamation mark is telling us that we need to pay attention to this and why. These should be some of the reasons why. This is like a beaker breaking and it's on your hand. So this is stand for corrosion. So this just means that, you don't want it in your eyes, you don't want to leave it on your skin, so on and so forth. So here is a more exhaustive list that I wanted to show you guys. These will be fair game on the lab quiz, so I do want you guys to know what they are, what the symbol means, and what it could mean, right? So if I show you this symbol, you could tell me, well, this means it could be a carcinogen. I have to look out for this because it's corrosive, right? I want to wash it on my skin after. Okay, so where can this information be found? So this information can always be found on the label of your actual chemical. So here's what a typical label may look like, or what I refer to as the safety data sheets. So basically, there is a safety data sheet for every single chemical we will use. Okay, and if you want to look at it, you are more than welcome to. It is a 16 section list. It's got the firefighting techniques. It's got the precautions you need to take all the way down to the use, what it's made of, where we got it from. It's pretty good about having everything because it's standardized. So like I said, it's on the label, right? So here's what a typical label might look like. So you have your product identifier. We have ammonia. Your signal word, danger. Well, why is it dangerous? You have your hazard statement. It's toxic if ingested. Okay. Precautionary statements. What happens if something happens? Well, I need to wash my hands thoroughly after handling. I need to keep container tightly closed, so on and so forth. Okay, tells you where the supplier is, and then here are my little hazardous pictograms, right? So I have a skull and crossbones, so toxic if ingested, my flammable, and my corrosive. So those are telling me what I need to look out for quick and easy right away. Okay, so they're going to be in different sections. So you have your fire hazards, your health hazards, your physical hazards, your biological hazards, and maybe radiation hazards. So physical hazards, these are going to be more found on the equipment that we use within the lab. So maybe something as a power supply, it might tell you that electrocution is possible. Something sharp, you have this pictogram which telling you it's sharp, might include a razor needle. Hot plate is going to have this. It's going to be hot. And we won't work with anything that will pinch or crush in this lab, but this might be like in your technology class or something, right? So next we'll talk about proper cleanup and waste disposal. So the stuff that we use in lab, we just want to make sure that we're, following regulations and laws and disposing of stuff properly. Okay, so during the lab, I'll tell you, these things can go in the garbage. This thing needs to go in the biohazard waste. It'll all be laid out for you guys, so you guys just need to make sure that you are paying attention and having good lab disposal techniques. Okay, so proper cleanup and disposal. I'll tell you, this beaker needs to be washed, but this beaker can stay out for the next lab. All these materials that you got at the beginning of the lab need to be put away where you found them or cleaned. It is super important that if you are cleaning, you are still wearing all of your personal protective equipment. Okay, when you're cleaning those beakers, that's the most likely time that it's going to splash up back into your eyes. So the goggles are definitely a must. All right, and then emergency procedures. So if you're unsure, always ask me first, right? It's always better to be certain. And then we want to just make sure that we're taking prompt action and have clear communication. So for preparing for emergencies, we have our safety equipment in place. We know where it is. Your evacuation routes and assembly points are already established. You have your procedures and you have trainings and drills, right? So we'll practice. So we have the emergency contacts at the front of the room. We have our phone if you need to call. And then we also have our emergency button, right? So if you push this button at any time, it goes right to the main office and they're right away in contact with you and you can tell them what the issue is. And you will not get in trouble if you push this button if you are in need of somebody. So responding to student injuries. So if a student's injured, you need to inform the teacher immediately. You're going to stay clear of the location. You keep a safe distance, respect the privacy of that student. If I instruct you differently, or if you're in the way of that student, then you can stop working. However, if not, then continue working. Respect the privacy. Let the teacher and the student work it out. And just stay alert, right? Make sure that you're not running into the same problems, you're clear of the way, you're helpful, but not in the way. Okay, and then understanding legal and ethical responsibilities for student welfare. So just complying with laws and regulations. So it's essential to adhere to laws and regulations regarding the collection of natural materials in our chemistry lab. So making sure we're disposing of them the proper way that we talk about in each lab. And collecting these natural materials are only for research purposes only. Okay, and then the other thing is talking about ethical considerations. So if we are using animals, which we will not be doing this year in chemistry, we just want to make sure that we're approaching this animal with respect, right? We're respecting the welfare of this animal. We're minimizing use whenever possible. We're using appropriate care and humane handling. And then if we were to ever use live animals, we would also get consent from you and your parents. All right, so those are a couple of the safety rules that we need to address and keep in mind during this year for chemistry lab. I do also have a quiz for you guys and a safety contract that you will take home to your parents and return back to me signed. All right.